Hello and welcome to the weekly deathmatch for the 71st week running. I think I may have proven by now that I can do weekly episodes of a series. Answering the question that nobody asked. This is Destiny 2. I felt like playing Destiny 2. It's been a while, and Gears of War was downloading in the background even though I told it not to, so I was also experiencing some lag. But yeah, also still not using optimal guns, still not up to date on the meta game for Crucible and all that stuff, just using what I feel like using. Graviton Lance was nerfed, what, a year ago? But I still like using it, so there. Anyway, oh yeah, another thing just before I launch into the main topic of this video, I just want Halo. There's going to be lots of Halo Reach in the weekly deathmatch when that finally comes out. I want to play it, and it's not out yet, but it's fine. But that's what hype looks like in a post-World of Warcraft classic world. Last week I held off talking about it because it wasn't out yet, and I'd already said everything that could possibly have been said about it. This week, it's been out, and I've been playing it. I haven't checked my playtime recently. I imagine it's probably 2 days worth now. So I've spent probably 48 hours of the last week playing World of Warcraft Classic. And I like it. I really do like it. There have been times when I've just been like, oh man, like I've logged off and I've been like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to 60. That was a lot of grinding and I feel a little bit burnt out on it right now. But I wake up the next day and my brain's like, World of Warcraft, you gotta log back in. And I log back in and I keep playing. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm leveling a human mage. So on launch, and I have streamed it a bit, and I have already put out a Adventures in Azeroth video about it as well. But on launch day, or not launch night, because it was a bit, as you can see on the live stream, which I still haven't published on my channel, whoops, it was a bit all over the place. But the day after, I was just doing quests in Elwyn Forest, and I started a group to kill a quest boss, and then I got to talking to someone who's in the group, made friends with them, joined their guild. Now I'm making friends with the people in the guild. I am living that true classic World of Warcraft experience, and it's amazing. I'm really enjoying it, and I think a big part of what makes World of Warcraft fun is the people. If you go into that game with the expectation of not talking to anyone, of just soloing everything and not making any attachments to any people, I honestly think that the game in its base state just like that isn't enjoyable. But what the game is so good at doing is pushing those social interactions and enabling you to kind of like, enabling a space for you to talk to people and, you know, share this adventure with people. And a lot of the time, because I started, I go on about this a lot every time I talk about it, but basically I dabbled in Burning Crusade, but I properly started a game in Mists of Pandaria, which is, if you're not aware of World of Warcraft, I think the 4th expansion? It's a ways in, and it was after a lot of a modernification, is that a word? Am I pronouncing it right? That of the game had taken place, like Dungeon Finder and all of that stuff, and taken away a lot of those community-driven aspects of it. And while I really enjoyed, no, actually that's my point, I really enjoyed the game, and I always saw the people who were asking for that stuff back as people who were seeing the game as rose-tinted glasses. And I never really went out of my way to like ridicule them or mock them or anything like that, as some people do. But I definitely thought like, oh, you know, it's a case of rose-tinted glasses, grass is always greener. I mean, people have been saying that World of Warcraft is a dying game since before it released. Like, I've seen forums of beta, when they changed something during the beta, and people were like, wow, this is a really stupid change, Blizzard have killed the game, World of Warcraft's a dead game. That's been happening since before release. But I digress. My point is, I kind of never really listened to those people, took them seriously, but they absolutely had a point when they said that even though the game was harder, it was better because it forced those, well, not forced, but it encouraged those social interactions, and that's what the game was. It wasn't what the game wasn't like telling you a story, as much as I do love the story of a modern game. The game wasn't telling you a story, you were telling your own story within that game, and you were sharing it with people, and it was more of a second life than just like a game as a service kind of a thing. And, you know, I have a job, I don't have the time to dedicate, you know, 100% of my time to that game, which is not something I think I would do anyway. I think I have a greater appreciation of, you know, living a healthier life and having more variety in my life nowadays. But, you know, if I guess I'm in kind of a lucky time where I get to play that again, because when it first came out I would have been 9, I think, which is way too young to really appreciate that game. I mean, when I did first play it I was like 12 or 13 or something during Burning Crusade, and I only got to like level 17 or 18 and then I stopped because I was like, it's a grind. I don't remember what my thought process was. It was probably that it was a grind and that I was bored of not leveling up quickly enough. But I remember all I did was hang around talking to my guild and stuff, and looking back on it originally I thought, well, that's why it took me so long to level, because all I did was hang around, kill boars and talk to my guild. But now I'm like, no, the reason it took me so long to level is because, you know, it was a long leveling experience, and playing modern WoW and then comparing it to classic WoW, I can absolutely see how back then I would have fallen off quests, quest lines and stuff like that, because the game design is just not as good when it comes to like a coherent experience, which is part of the fun nowadays looking back on it. It's like I don't think it's the kind of thing you can really design like if you tried to. I think World of Warcraft, as much as it was you know, put together in a way that encouraged people to play it, like people wouldn't have played it if it was a shit game, but at the same time if it was better made, I think people wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, which is kind of weird to say, but like, I mean, you've got that comparison now. You can compare modern WoW and all of its quest lines where it's just like it gives you free quests to go and do free things in the same area, and then you can see it on the map, and then you just go and do those objectives and go and hand it in. You don't need to interact with anyone or anything like that, because it's scaled to your level and your power, ability and stuff like that, and because of that it's not as challenging. And while that might make it technically a better game because you're not stopping every few minutes to like look for a group or whatever, and there's not as much downtime between actual gameplay, at the same time, you know, it doesn't really, I think I've already gone over this now, but it doesn't really lend itself to talking to people and stuff like that. But then I think if you tried to design a game around that stuff, you would just make it intentionally hard, and it would be to the point where people wouldn't like it. And I think as much as World of Warcraft Classic, or Vanilla I should say, was a product of, you know, being a good game made by a good company, I think it was equally as much a bit of a fluke because of the way it all comes together. And it's kind of fascinating to experience it now firsthand, and I totally get it when people say that. Someone said they went back and they tried retail after Classic came out and they felt like it had no soul in it. And while I don't necessarily agree with the wording of that, because I follow a lot of the developers on Twitter and I know they are very, you know, heartfelt with their development of this game, I do kind of know what they mean though. Like, just everything I've already said. That's the end of this ramble. I'll see you next week. It'll be less WoW focused. Mwah.